started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited this morning to have our pre-application webinar for our American Indian Alaska Native Student Success Plan grants. Next slide. So today's goals for our webinar, we will do a welcome and introductions of our OIE team. We will review our goal 1 under the student success plan. We will also just go over an overview of grant eligibility, as well as grant review and evaluation. And we will discuss the grant process and timeline, how to apply, and open up for any questions and answers that you may have. So for those that might not be too familiar with our office, the mission of our office is to support the efforts of early learning entities, local educational agencies, tribes, organizations, post-secondary institutions of education, and other entities to meet the unique cultural, language, and educational needs of our American Indian Alaska Native students, and to ensure that all students have the supports needed to be successful. We're really excited to open up our grant programs under our American Indian Alaska Native Student Success Plan. Today with us, we have myself, Delina Otherbull. I'm Crow in Northern Cheyenne, and I currently serve as the coordinator of the Student Success Plan and overseeing the facilitation of all of the grant programs. And I will allow my colleagues, April, Mona, Trin, to introduce themselves as well.
Thank you, Delina. This is April Campbell. I'm a citizen of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and currently serve as the Indian Education Advisor to the Office of an Indian Ed at ODE, and welcome this morning.
Thank you, Delina. This is Mona Halcomb. I'm a citizen of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, Oregon Department of Education Indian Ed Specialist, and glad to be here. Welcome, everyone.
And Jeannie, if you're on the webinar, would you like to introduce yourself as well? Okay, we'll just go ahead and move forward. So a little background and history of our American Indian Alaska Native Student Success Plan. Our first state plan was originally implemented in October 1991. It was updated in 2006 and again in 2017. The development of our state education plan and its updates have been guided through a collaborative process and shared leadership by both our American Indian Alaska Native Advisory Committee members and our government to government education cluster, which is comprised of representatives from each of the 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon. We engaged kind of a wider community in this process while we were looking at updating our plan in 2020. So we engaged a lot of our AIAN students and youth, tribes, ODE leadership, the general American Indian Alaska Native community, as well as other committed stakeholders. And we really centered their needs, experiences, and voices as we worked to update our plan this past year. If you're not too familiar with our State Advisory Committee, our committee provides critical guidance, input, advocacy, and recommendation on policy, rules, and legislation related to Indian education. And collectively, they recommend goals and measurable objectives for our student success plan to be implemented by our office. This latest update in 2020 to our student success plan will guide agency decision-making through 2025. This plan provides our communities with a mission that centers shared goals and sets the specific data-driven priorities that are really designed to meet the needs of our American Indian Alaska Native students. We grounded this plan with the overarching goal of success for all of our American Indian Alaska Native students and out-of-school youth. So for this webinar, we are focusing on our overarching goal 1 and strategy, and that's to really envision that all students enrolled in early learning programs, school districts, and post-secondary institutions in Oregon are engaged and empowered through relevant, rigorous learning opportunities that foster equity and excellence so that AI-AN students can succeed. Under our overarching goal, goal 1, we really identified 6 areas where we wanted to focus on, and that is kind of looking at our student success as being holistic and looking at all of the different components that go into creating a successful environment for our students. So the first area is identification, and we will be really looking at adopting and supporting increased accuracy for the identification criteria of American Indian Alaska Native students enrolled in early learning K through 12 and post-secondary institutions. Our second objective is to increase access to high quality community-based early learning programs that create and utilize culturally supportive environments that prepare AI-AN students for kindergarten. And I should have did some housekeeping when I started, but I just want to mention that if you have any questions, you're welcome to submit them in the chat box, and we'll make sure to address them in the Q&A section. And then at the end, during the Q&A section, we also have our procurement team here who can also help answer any questions that you may have. Going on to the third area, disproportionate, we're really looking at decreasing the occurrences and overrepresentation of AI-AN students experiencing academic suspensions, expulsions, and push-out. And that should, sorry, there's an error on my slide. It should say disproportionate discipline. And the fourth area for attendance is we're really looking at increasing attendance and graduation rates of all of our students here in Oregon. For transitions, we are looking at increasing the occurrences of successful student transitions at all levels, and really looking to enhance the social emotional wellness and balance for AI-AN students through positive behavioral health, healthy lifestyles, safety, and a connection to culture so that AI-AN students can thrive through transitions at critical points in their education. And so all of these are more fleshed out if you do review our student success plan. You're able to look at some of the actions that we've identified, some of the benchmarks that we're going to be evaluating these actions by, and really look at the bigger picture of where we're trying to guide the plan over the next 5 years. And lastly, our post-secondary and CTE enrollment. Under this objective, we're really looking at increasing enrollment and access for AI-AN students in post-secondary education, career, and technical education programs, as well as career readiness. And so again, this, when we convened a lot of our community conversations and discussed what the priorities would be for our student success plan, we really weighed kind of this overarching framework of what are the things that we know that our students need to be successful in education. And so these are the 6 different priority areas that we're hoping applicants will submit proposals to address in their grants. Next slide. So for grant eligibility, if you reviewed the RFA, we're providing grants up to $150,000, and to be eligible, applicants must be an early learning hub or a provider of early learning services, a school district, an education service district, a post-secondary institution of education, a community-based organization or culturally responsive organization that's working to design, implement, improve, expand, or otherwise revise programs and services for AIAN students, a tribe or a partnership or consortium. And if you have any questions about eligibility, you're welcome to refer to the RFA and or reach out to our procurement specialist. Next slide. So for our evaluation criteria, there's 115 total points possible. We are convening a review committee that is comprised up of both ODE staff as well as community advisory committee representatives, and really looking at each proposal holistically. So there's going to be 5 points possible for your applicant and community overview. So looking at how your mission, goals, and philosophy for providing services within community really position you to be successful in addressing the challenges in the service areas. There's 10 points possible for if you serve a rural area. There's 10 points possible for your project need. There's 40 points possible for project description. And for the description, we're really looking at to what extent does the applicant describe a meaningful project as it relates to goal 1. Again, you can address one of the 6 objectives, you can address a couple. We're really looking at your project and how it relates to goal 1, the overarching goal 1. There's 10 points possible for the evaluation. So to what extent does your proposed evaluation plan adequately measure progress and success? There's 10 points for community engagement. And in community engagement, we're really looking at how well does your organization or your entity or agency engage the community, not only on the front end when you're designing the project or the program, but also in the evaluation of really looking at how well you engage community in feedback or in creating better successful programs. There's 5 points possible for sustainability, and in sustainability, we're really looking at, we know that this grant is currently a 1-year grant, but we're really looking at to what extent is the project sustainable beyond the grant funding. So is this a new program that is going to be multi-year, or is this something that you're hoping to build off of? So there's 5 points for that as well. And the evaluation item is budget for 25 points. And really just an overview of looking at if your budget is thorough and reasonable for the proposed project. And so the total points possible is 115. Next slide. So our grant process and timeline. The table below represents a tentative schedule of events, and all times are listed in Pacific time, and the dates are subject to change, but for the most part, we're really hoping to stick to these dates. So today we're having our pre-application webinar. If you have any questions or requests, you can submit them by September 30th. The application closing date will be October 16th. And we are hoping to issue awards and notifications by November 6th. How to apply. So we have both the RFA and the materials listed in our ODE state website, which is ORPN, and we also have it listed on our ODE Office of Indian Education website. And so to apply, you will upload an electronic version of the complete application, and it must be submitted to Jeannie, who is our SPC, using the file transfer system available on our district website. Only completed applications submitted by closing will be scored. If you have any questions, you're welcome to contact our agency's help desk. Unless you have specific questions related to the actual application, then you would contact our SPC. So I would just like to open it up. If April, if you want to add anything to the presentation, or Mona.
Thank you, Delina. I thought you did a wonderful job, and I too would like to open it up to see if folks have questions, and feel free to put your questions in the chat as well.
So at this time, thank you, April. At this time, we'll open up for questions and answers. So there, you have the OIE team here, as well as our SPC, our procurement specialist, Jeannie. Are there any questions?
Delina, this is Debbie Green. One thing I wanted to note that I received an email from one of our partners, and she indicated that on the website, the one that's listed, the RFA as goal, is actually goal 2. So just to let the group know that they were transposed. Goal 1, if the RFA goal 1, it's actually goal 2 when you click on the link. So pay attention to what it looks like when you open it up.
Thank you, Debbie.
So we have a question from Valerie Switzler here. She says, I will be helping write a grant for higher ed. Do I need to declare any kind of conflict of interest?
Hi, Val, this is April, and because I don't believe you are on either one of our review committees, you do not need to.
I have another question from Charlie Bauer. He says, will this PowerPoint be shared?
Yes, so our PowerPoint, the webinar will be available on our website, and as well as the PowerPoint for those who are unable to attend today.
Another question, I'm not sure I can pronounce her last name, I apologize, Cynthia Calabresi. Considering the short time frame for this grant project, how can ODE OIE expect meaningful evaluation results to assess success?
Debbie, can you read that again?
Yes, considering the short time frame for this grant project, How can ODE, OIE expect meaningful evaluation results to assess success?
That's a really great question. So we initially have the start date for these grants as being July 1. And we're really hoping that to support applicants who may be already working on programs and or expanding programs. But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, April, I believe what we're really looking for is the work that's going to be done in this time frame. And I believe that with the grant reporting and evaluation, we're really looking at the applicants to just provide kind of comprehensively what they plan to do to evaluate the impact that their grant is going to have. April, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, thank you, Delina, and correct. And just for folks that are on the phone or might be listening to this later, so these funds were funds through the SSA dollars. And so we anticipate that we'll have a full biennium next year, starting after this grant ends at the end of June. So having a full 2 years is what we are anticipating for the future grants. It just so happened the timeline of this particular grant didn't start until, like Delina said, July. So if you look really closely at the RFA, it will say that we can support programs and release resources starting July of 2020.
Thank you, April.
But we do recognize that, yes, you're welcome, and we do recognize that this is a very short turnaround. And again, it's just it's the way the funding rolled out for this year. We're just thankful to have funding for this American Indian Alaska Native Student Success Plan finally after all these years, and I'm happy to get dollars out the door.
So we have another question. Tamara Henderson would like to know, will no cost extensions be allowed?
So just for clarity, is the question, we cannot extend beyond the June 30th date? And if that's the question, the answer is correct, because these funds are specific to this biennium. So there will be no extensions for this grant beyond the June 30th date.
She said that answered her question. Okay, another question coming in. Are all schools with an AIAN program eligible for this grant?
Yes, and if you review the RFA, we the two requirements are that you meet one of the requirements for one of the entity requirements, and then the second one is that you serve a number or percentage of American Indian Alaska Native students. So if you do have a program, then yes, you would be eligible. So according to the RFA, it says all projects must serve at least 10 American Indian Alaska Native students. So if you have a program where you have 10 or more students, yes, we encourage you to apply. Are there any other questions?
No, there were no other questions that were written in so far.
Selena, I wonder if we should put Jeannie's contact in the chat.
Okay. Yes, I can drop Jeannie's contact information in the chat. And so as a team, the Office of Indian Education, we can't answer questions directly, but if you have any questions about the RFA, or if you have questions you filling out the application, you are welcome to contact our SPC, which is our single point of contact, and her name is Jeannie Stuntsner. And she is with procurement at ODE. So I will drop her information in the chat. It is also available on the front page of the RFA.
Delina, I was going to write a few of the answers to these questions for those that are, I don't know if they'll actually show up on the recorded webinar. Do I need to write all of the answers in, or will people just be able to listen to it on the webinar?
People will, I don't believe they'll be able to pull up the chat features, but they'll be able to hear if they listen to the webinar.
Okay, thank you.
So if there are no other questions, we will end here. Again, our webinar will be posted on our web page at the Office of Indian Education, as well as our PowerPoint. And so you're welcome to refer back to both of those. And if you have any questions about the RFA process or the application process, please reach out to our SBC, Jeannie Stuntsner, and she'll be able to help you navigate the RFA process. And so good luck to everyone, and we really look forward to reading your proposals. Thank you for joining us today.
And one other quick question. How many grants do you anticipate funding?
So the allocation for our total, all of the grant programs that we are, the total amount that we are giving out is 3.2 million. And so for the student success, we are looking at giving out 10 grants at 150,000 or 20 grants at 75,000. And so we're really looking at what proposals are coming in understanding that not everyone would be able to spend 150,000 by the end of the year. So we're really looking at a mix of both amounts, hoping that people will know what they can reasonably budget for over the next fiscal year.
Okay, one other follow-up to that. You have 125 in RFA, and you mentioned 150 total grants.
The 125,000 is for the educator success RFA. The 150,000 is for the student success RFA. And I know those are two different grant programs, but for the student success, we're looking at giving out 10 grants at 150,000, which is 1.5 million. And for the educator success, we're looking at giving out 5 grants at 125,000, which is 625,000 total.
Thank you. I think that's all of them now, Delina.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again. And we just look forward to reading your proposals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.